Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? As we gather here this evening, I would like to kindly remind everyone to please adhere to all published health precautions. This includes distancing as appropriate, no more than 6 cadets per table, and the continuous wear of masks except while actively eating or drinking. The banquet will begin momentarily. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cadet Riley McGinnis, the Cadet First Captain for the Corps of Cadets, and your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. Welcome to the annual West Point Founders Day dinner. Please stand for the invocation by Chaplain Good and remain standing as we join the Glee Club in the singing of the Corps. The lyrics can be found on the back of your programs.
All right. As we celebrate the anniversary of the Academy, it is good to be reminded of another anniversary as we begin the 2nd century of service for the Cadet Prayer. It was written by Chaplain Clayton Wheat in 1920 for the Corps. He wrote this prayer to express, quote, the aspirations of those who earnestly desire to realize in their own lives the ideals and principles which have long been fostered by the Corps. May this prayer continue in the next century to serve the ideals that we strive to live by and lead by. Let us pray. O God, our Father, thou searcher of human hearts, help us to draw near to thee in sincerity and truth. May our religion be filled with gladness, and may our worship of thee be natural. Strengthen and increase our admiration for honest dealing and clean thinking, and suffer not our hatred of hypocrisy and pretense ever to diminish. Encourage us in our endeavor to live above the common level of life. Make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. Endow us with courage that is born of loyalty to all that is noble and worthy, that scorns to compromise with vice and injustice, and knows no fear when truth and right are in jeopardy. Guard us against flippancy and irreverence in the sacred things of life. Grant us new ties of friendship and new opportunities of service. Kindle our hearts in fellowship with those of a cheerful countenance, and soften our hearts with sympathy for those who sorrow and suffer. Help us to maintain the honor of the Corps untarnished and unsullied, and to show forth in our lives the ideals of West Point in doing our duty to thee and to our country. All of which we ask in the name of the great friend and master of all. Amen.
The Corps, the Corps, the Corps, the Corps bareheaded saluted with eyes up, thanking our God that we of the Corps are ready, where they of the Corps have trod. They are here in ghostly assemblage, raised on the grace of the long dead, and our hearts are standing attention while we wait for their passing tread. The Corps of today we salute you, the Corps of an earlier day we salute. We follow close order behind you, where you have pointed the way. We salute the lonely river stretches through the years of a century told, and the last one feels to the marrow the grip of your far-off hold. Grip hands with us now, though we see not. Grip hands with us, strengthen our horse. As the long line stiffens and straightens, with a thrill that your presence imparts. Grip hands, though it be from the shadows, while we swear as indeed of yore, or living or dying to honor the core and the core and the core.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. At this time, may I remind you that following your meal, please don your masks. Lieutenant General Williams, Brigadier General Buzzard, Brigadier General Jebb, Command Sergeant Major Coffey, Command Sergeant Major Killingsworth, Dr. Peterson, Mr. Brown, Captain Greist, our guest speaker for this evening, and Sergeant Major Williams and Sergeant Major Payne, two Congressional Medal of Honor recipients in attendance tonight as our distinguished guests. Please give them a round of applause. To all our guests and fellow members of the Corps, good evening, and welcome to the 2021 West Point Founders Day dinner. We are here tonight to celebrate the founding of the United States Military Academy 219 years ago. All around the world, members of the Long Gray Line are celebrating West Point's history and looking to us, the Corps of Cadets, to carry on the legacy for the years ahead. It is a privilege for us this evening to honor our founders for building this institution that our nation so greatly respects and cherishes. This year, we recognize Colonel Retired Raymond Renola, class of 1940, who is 104 years old as the oldest living graduate. Similarly, we recognize Second Lieutenant Catherine Ontiveros, class of 2020, at just 21 years old as our youngest graduate. Lastly, we'd be remiss if we did not recognize our 50-year affiliate classes. They are the classes of 1971, 72, 73, and 74, respectively. Please join me now in viewing some special highlights from these distinguished old grads at this time.
Hi, I'm Francis K. Newcomer, Junior, class of 1939 at the Military Academy, and I'm one of the members of the Long Gray Line, along with many other members of my family. My grandfather, class of 1886, graduate, and my father, class of 1913, graduate. My Uncle David, class of 1919, it would be called by some the Oriole class. They came back for an extra year of graduation. And my first cousin, Henry Newcomer, is a classmate of mine, class 1939. And my earliest memories as a person was when my father was stationed at West Point from 1919 to 1924, I think. It's been part of my background as a person. It's always something which I'm proud of, to be associated with the military academy.
Hi, I'm General Marty Dempsey, 37th Chief of Staff of the Army, 18th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. More important, a proud member of West Point's class of 1974, Pride of the Corps. Happy Founders Day. And a special shout out to our 50-year affiliate class, the class of 2024, like none before. Let's all remember duty, honor, and country.
Hey, West Point, happy Founders Day. This is Pat Kane, class of 73, proud and free. I want to give a shout out to the class of 23. Freedom is not free. It's an honor to be with you as the 50-year affiliation class. We've been together a year and a half. We'll be together another 2.5 years through your major waypoints of your 47-month experience. Enjoy Founders Day. Beat Navy.
Hello, cadets. I'm Colonel John Northrop, President, Class of 1972. And I'd like to wish a happy Founders Day to our affiliation class, the great class of 2022. P.S. Good job on the snowball fight, and beat Navy.
From the windswept shores of Gloucester, Massachusetts, the West Point class of 1971, professionally done, sends greetings to our 50-year affiliate class, the class of 2021. Until the Battle of One, the long gray line of us stretches over now 2 centuries fold. And the long gray line, West Pointers, our commitment, dedication, and selfless service have sustained this country since its founding. And one more thing. Go Army, beat Navy!
Thank you and enjoy your dinner.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Kalish from the West Point class of 1982.
And I'm John Crusoni. I was in the class of 1961. We're both representing the West Point Society of the Mid-Hudson region, which is right here at West Point.
And we're thrilled to be celebrating Founders Day with everybody. And we invite you, if you're ever in the area, to join our society, West Point Society of the Mid-Hudson region.
Greetings from the other side of the Hudson. I'm Richard Park, class of 1984, president of the West Point Society of New York. We are thrilled to be spending Founders Day with you. If you are assigned, live near, or happen to be visiting our society area, which is the greater New York City area, please don't hesitate to reach out. Go Army, beat Navy.
This is Dale Kurtz from the class of 1973 and the West Point Society of New England. Wishing the Corps of Cadets, especially the class of 2021, and all members of the Long Gray Line, a great Founders Day. Go Army, beat Navy. Hoorah!
Lieutenant General retired Dave Halverson, president of the West Point Society of Washington, D.C. The COVID environment has caused many of our Founders Day to be virtual. So all of us here in the National Capital Regions want to just propose a toast to the United States Military Academy. To the Academy. Go Army, beat Navy.
The West Point Society of Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Wishes the Corps of Cadets
a happy Founders Day.
beat Navy!
I'm Colonel Mike Flanagan, class of '86. Courage never quits. From the shores of the James River in Richmond, Virginia, I send you one single thought, one sole idea written in black and gold on every storefront from the Eastern Shore to the Blue Ridge Mountains. There is no substitute for victory. Go Army, beat Navy.
This is Bill Trivett, West Point class of 1970 and president of the West Point Society Piedmont in North Carolina. I wish I could be with you for your Founders Day, but know that I'll be with you in spirit. We're very proud of your accomplishments. Go Army.
Greetings from the West Point Society of the Space Coast in sunny Cocoa Beach, Florida. Here's wishing you a happy and healthy Founders Day 2021. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Founders Day from the West Point Society of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Barb Mancari, class of 98. Along with my husband, Colonel Tony Mancari, class of 98, we'll be celebrating Founders Day with the United States Corps of Cadets, including our daughter, Anna, class of 2023, and Sarah, class of 2024. Go Army, beat Navy.
I am Chris Curry, representing the West Point Society of the Mid-South in Memphis, Tennessee, and a member of the class of 1999, with duty in mind. We are celebrating Founders Day with you. If you are assigned, live near, or will be visiting Memphis, Tennessee, we welcome you to join us.
From the high country, above Colorado Springs and just outside Fort Carson, Colorado. For any of you that will be joining us in the area soon, we'd like to welcome you to the West Point Society of the Pikes Peak region.
Hi, Erin Newman here, class of 2007, and this is Isabel, future class of 2037. We're in St. Louis, Missouri, and beat Navy.
My name is Alice Pleasantbury. I am from the class of 1994 with Courage Be Sore. I'm also from the West Point Society of Oregon. We are celebrating Founders Day with you. If you are ever out in Oregon or Southwest Washington, come join us. Go Army, be Navy.
This is Tony Gates, Company B3, class of 1981, and president of the West Point Society of Northern California. And we want to celebrate Founders Day with you. So if you're ever in the Sacramento area, for whatever reason, roll through, check us out.
Hello out there. My name is Hector Tapetti, class of 1976, and I'm the president of the West Point Society of the Monterey Peninsula. We would like to celebrate Founders Day with you. Go Army, beat Navy.
Aloha kakau to our alumni in Ohana here in Hawaii and across the world. Our society is 500 strong and growing. We have 33 cadets from our great state currently excelling at our alma mater. Our alumni fellowship and partnership with the Army in the Pacific and the great communities here in Hawaii Nei make us especially proud in declaring,
Go Army! To shores of the sceptred Isles of the United Kingdom, the West Point Society of Great Britain sends you one single thought, one sole idea. Beat Navy!
Good evening. You can always count on the soup. Hi, my name's Todd Brown, class of '85, and I'm the president and CEO of the West Point Association of Graduates. Whew. So I want to thank General Williams and the West Point leader team for inviting me to say a few words tonight. You know, Founders Day is a West Point tradition that celebrates the establishment of the United States Military Academy on 16 March 1802, when Thomas Jefferson signed the originating document, which read that the Cid Corps, when so organized, shall be stationed at West Point in the state of New York and shall constitute the Military Academy. Founders Day is celebrated across the world in almost 140 different West Point societies. The program usually includes a get-together for cadet candidates, a Benny Havens social hour, named after the Benny Havens Tavern in Highland Falls that was originated in 1832, followed by short remarks from the youngest and oldest graduates in the society, and then concludes with an update on the Academy from one of the Academy's leaders. When you are out in the operational Army, Founders Day is a great opportunity for fellowship. It's a chance to celebrate our Academy and get to know your fellow graduates in your local area. So as grads around the world gather today to talk about how much harder they had it than you, I thought it fitting to celebrate the Old Grad Network and the power of the long gray line, which may be the best way to illustrate for you why we do what we do at the AOG. Last April, as the pandemic raged, Colonel Tim Connors, class of 1988, the director of Camp Smith training site, was tasked with establishing a temporary warehouse infrastructure and operations base in response to the COVID-19 emergency. His mission was to provide a 1 million square foot tent warehouse facility for storing and distributing COVID relief supplies. He described this task as daunting, given that his team was already engaged with marshaling and quartering the bulk of the response forces. And in addition, no member of his team had any experience in this area. So what'd he do? He called the AOG. In Colonel Connor's words, the AOG and the Long Gray Line responded big time. In a matter of hours, we connected him to grads in both the civilian world and the military with this exact experience. Fellow graduates marshaled teams of their own, and as a result, this once daunting challenge resulted in a resounding success. So what makes grads stop what they're doing to help a fellow grad? What explains this? Why do we hear over and over again that the bonds formed at West Point are some of the most important and lasting in a grad's life? Why, for that matter, are grads gathered today all over the world? Perhaps this next short story will reveal the answer. This took place a couple of years ago at our spring alumni exercises, where all the assembled graduates process across Diagonal Walk, and the oldest grad places a wreath at the Thayer statue. At the time, our oldest grad was 103 years old, Colonel Kermit Dyke, class of 1940. His son, Robert, class of 1975, escorted Kermit Dyke back to West Point. As we assembled near Ike's statue, a bit of a skirmish broke out. See, Colonel Dyke was supposed to be pushed across Diagonal Walk in a wheelchair. And when he got to West Point, he really just could not have that, right? He's like, there's no way I'm being pushed in this wheelchair across the Diagonal Walk. So him and his son are negotiating for a while. And finally, they came to a compromise. And Colonel Dyke agreed, okay, I'll get pushed in the wheelchair on the Diagonal Walk, but when we get to the grass on the other side, I'm walking. And so we do that. And I'm in the row right behind them in the formation. And when we get to the other side, to the grass, Colonel Dyke slowly rises up out of his wheelchair and he starts to walk. And after only one step, 103, he realizes, I'm out of step. And he executes a smart change step, as you all learned back in Beast Barracks, and he immediately gets back in step. What he learned over 80 years before at West Point came right back to him. So when I observed the oldest grad who at the age of 103, who probably shouldn't even have been walking, was able to execute this change step, it made me smile. And it made me very proud to be in the ranks that day. So it's only a small moment, but it's really symbolic of West Point. Big and small things we learn at West Point stick with us for the rest of our lives, including the realization that we can turn to fellow graduates when help is needed. West Point is embedded in the fiber of who we are. Its lessons guide us. And all the things we do at AOG for cadets, for the academy, keeping the long gray line connected is vitally important. Thank you. Happy Founders Day, and beat Navy.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This evening, it is my privilege to introduce to you our guest speaker, Captain Kristen Greist. Captain Greist hails from Orange, Connecticut, and is the mighty First and Proud 1st Regiment graduate from Company C1 as a 2011 graduate of the United States Military Academy. She graduated with a degree in international relations and branched military police. After serving as an MP platoon leader to include a deployment to Afghanistan in 2013, Captain Greist later became one of the first of 2 women to graduate Ranger School in 2015. She then went on to graduate from the Maneuver Captain's Career Course and conducted a voluntary branch transfer and became the first female infantry officer in the Army. Captain Greist later served as an operations officer and infantry company commander. More recently, she served as a team leader in the 2nd Security Force Assistance Brigade at Fort Bragg and deployed her team to Afghanistan in 2019, serving with our very own Command Sergeant Major Killingsworth. She currently serves on Army Talent Management Task Force. Please join me now in welcoming Captain Greist to the podium.
Thank you, Cadet McGinnis. Thank you and good evening, Lieutenant General Williams, Brigadier General Buzzard, Brigadier General Jebb, Command Sergeant Major Coffey, Command Sergeant Major Killingsworth, Dr. Peterson, Mr. Brown, Sergeant Major Payne, and Sergeant Major Williams. It's a tremendous honor to get to address the United States Corps of Cadets on such a meaningful night as Founders Day, excuse me. First of all, I want to acknowledge how much everyone in this room has had to deal with over the last year during COVID-19. The pandemic has been hard for everyone, and West Point is hard for everyone, but having to handle both at the same time sounds almost unbearable. I heard something about a drink card, I think. Just know that deprivation builds character, and it sounds like you guys have been getting a lot of good mental preparation for Ranger School. So you really have no reason not to go. I was also excited to learn that I'll be speaking virtually to West Point graduates all around the world. This is important information to know, especially when you've spoken at these events before, but possibly to the same people. But fortunately, I have so many impactful memories of West Point and its graduates that I can really grab a handful of those and hopefully impart a meaningful message. Due to the current COVID environment, I was asked to focus my speech on resilience, and that's pretty fitting for Founders Day. I've been asked a lot about resilience over the last 6 years, and I cannot tell you how many times I mention West Point in my answers. When people ask what is different about me that made me resilient, I always think it's not me, it's this institution that's different. It was a combination of high expectations and impressive examples from its faculty and graduates that made the difference early in my career and helped me achieve my goals. So there are 3 main questions I get asked with regards to resilience, and I thought it might just be easiest to answer them here for you tonight. The first question is almost always, how did I find the resilience to deal with backlash from men who didn't want women in the Ranger School or the infantry? This question is kind of funny to me because it was actually men who encouraged me to go to Ranger School and join the infantry in the first place. One story I have to retell is about then Lieutenant Colonel Gus Herter, class of 1990. Colonel Herter had served in Ranger Regiment and spent 7 years in special operations before he came to be a regimental TAC officer here. Needless to say, he had extremely high standards, and he was not the TAC officer you wanted to run into if you were jacked up. Colonel Herter's corrective action tactics earned him the nickname of the Hurt Locker, and I met him the summer going into my senior year. I was interviewing for a key summer leader position, and as usual, I wrote down my 5-year plan was to branch infantry and go to Ranger School, which for women in 2010 was not really a thing. But Colonel Herter took me seriously, and he said, "All right, Ranger, send me your PT card." He knew we had an APFT in a few weeks, and I went into my training for that one with different motivation than usual. Although the APFT had different standards for women, I realized Colonel Herter did not care about my gender. He just cared about my performance. That was the first fitness test I maxed on the men's scale, finally running under a 13-minute 2-mile. When I sent him my PT card, he invited me into his infantry mentorship club that he held down at the 1st E Club. Even though the Army excluded women from combat units, he included us, several other women as well, and showed us that gender was not important, performance was all that mattered. Colonel Herter is a big part of the reason I'm so passionate about gender-neutral standards for the ACFT. Not everyone is exposed to his level of leadership, but by implementing a policy that holds women to equal standards, the Army will send the same message to all women that he sent to me back then. You are an equal member of the team. We do expect great things from you, and you are responsible for your performance regardless of gender. The knowledge that my performance is completely within my control makes me resilient when I fail or fall short, which happens pretty often. And I did fall short a lot of times in his mentorship program, whether he was having us bench press our own body weight or run 5 miles under 40 minutes. There were very few physical tasks I could do on my first try. The most recent one is that stupid ball throw on the ACFT. But rather than giving up on myself, I know I can train to get there, or as he would say, fix myself. Another influential officer in my development was Colonel Casey Haskins, class of 1982. Colonel Haskins was our DMI 6 in 2010, and he also came from Ranger Regiment, which is kind of a trend here. My class was the first class of Cadet Leadership Development Training, or CLDT. Previously, it was just a pilot. But having this new, arduous 3-week course thrown into our summer break caused a few hurt feelings. You guys are probably familiar with this. So he started day 1 off with a pep talk of sorts that he thought we needed. I will never forget this speech because it is seared into my mind. To say he was disappointed is an understatement. He was kind of disgusted at that time, not in us, but in some previous graduates. He paced back and forth, not really making eye contact with anyone. as if he was trying to maintain his temper and stay calm. And he told us this story. He said, during the previous summer, 14 West Point graduates decided to quit Ranger School. At some point during the 62-day course, they each independently raised their hands and said, "I quit." And when a Ranger instructor asked if they wanted to get dropped from the course, they said yes. They then proceeded to sign their name on a piece of paper that said, "I do not have the intestinal fortitude to complete this physically demanding and mentally rigorous course." That piece of paper, called the lack of motivation statement, will be the first thing their unit sees of them, and they signed their name on it. 14 West Point graduates. He practically spat that last part out. Then he turned to us and said, "We are here to make sure that never happens again." The bottom line of the speech was that West Pointers don't quit. Part of me wanted to raise my hand and ask if, because women weren't allowed in Ranger School, if that meant we were excused from training. But I do not think he was in the mood for that kind of question. And he was speaking to the women as well. He knew that women needed to be mentally tough too, just like the men, and that we could be in a combat situation, and that we owed it to our soldiers to be as well prepared as possible. I recalled this speech when I was going through Ranger School, after having recycled the first phase twice. When you recycle a phase of Ranger School twice, you can either be sent home, or you could take a day one recycle, which means starting all over again at the grueling wrap week. When I walked into the brigade commander's office that day, he had already dismissed 4 of the other women and told them they were going home. And I assumed that's what he was going to tell me. He confirmed this assumption, and he said, "You're a good candidate, you're physically fit, you should definitely try this again if the Army ever does it again." But for the time being, I had to leave. At that moment, realizing what was at stake, I felt like I needed to do everything possible to stay. Now, I really did not want to stay at this point. I kind of just wanted to go sit in the air conditioning and eat pizza. But I thought about Colonel Haskins' speech and all the women I might be quitting on, and I asked for a day one recycle. The brigade commander said most men could not pass wrap week again after 2 months of going through Ranger School. I told him I thought I could pass it. This was kind of a bluff. I definitely did not think I could pass wrap week again. But I wanted to feel like I did everything I could to stay there. Colonel David Fivecoat, class of 1993, saw something in that bluff and he called me on it. He kicked me out of his office, where I waited for about 10 minutes thinking, all right, this is it. I did everything I could. I'm gonna go home. Then he called me back in and he said, "I'll give you the same opportunity I give the men. If you could do 49 push-ups right now in my office, I will let you stay." I was still thinking, okay, I definitely can't do the Ranger style push-ups right now. They're kind of infamous. But when I got down and when I got to rep 35, I realized I would know that if I didn't make it to 49, that I was quitting. I knew I had the physical ability to do it, and I knocked him out. Colonel Fivecoat and Sergeant Major Arnold gave me another chance, and I moved my bags from the drop pile to the day one recycle pile. Not surprisingly, Captain Shay Haver, class of 2012, and Major Lisa Jaster, class of 2000, were also able to do the push-ups, and they came with me for a day one recycle. I gained resilience that day from Colonel Haskins' message that you should take pride in where you came from and what you've done, and that quitting not only dishonors that legacy, but yourself. There have been plenty of male detractors of women in the infantry, but I do not remember their names. In fact, most of the criticism occurred online by anonymous usernames. But I have noticed a trend in the people I do remember, that the men who stood up for me, encouraged and empowered me, were always the ones with the most impressive credentials, the ones that were the most self-assured and confident in themselves. From my Ranger School classmates to my peers at the career course, my infantry battalion commanders, first sergeants, platoon leaders, and paratroopers, those men probably don't remember all the small things they did that made me feel welcome. But I do, and it gave me resilience to handle the critics. The second question I get asked is, what did I do to become more resilient than other women? To this question, I always want to respond, have you met other women? Because it was actually the example of so many other women that showed me what that I was capable of achieving more than I really thought I was. Generations of women have showed me that my gender was not a limitation and inspired me to push myself harder. As honored as I am to have been the first female Ranger and infantry officer, I realize those accolades are really a matter of timing. Lillian Fluke, the class of 1980, who ran a triathlon 3 weeks after giving birth and used to march General Cindy Jebb down to the pull-up bars at night to do extra pull-ups, she could have been the first female Ranger. Chris Fuhr, who was ranked 10th in the class of 1985, could have chosen any branch she wanted if they were all available to her. Those ladies and so many others had been body-breaching obstacles for women for decades before I showed up in 2007. But I also had personal examples, and I'll never forget one of my early female role models, then Major Charcy Barrett, class of 2001. She was my battalion XO in the 716th MP Battalion. Our unit held a week of activities and physical competitions, and she signed up for the triathlon. Even though she was the only woman competing against all men in the same events for the same distance, she won the swim event. Then, during the 12-mile bike ride, because she borrowed somebody's bike, her seat fell off around mile 7, and that did not slow her down for a minute. She finished the next 5 miles without a bike seat. So a couple men did pass her. But for the 5K run, she hopped off the bike and passed everybody to come in first place. And one of those men had a Ranger tab. This was like a Tuesday morning fun run, but she took it very seriously and showed me that day that my gender was not the limitation I thought it was. This was also the summer of 2014 while I was training up for Ranger School. I was thinking that when I showed up to a pre-Ranger course, I was going to be dead last in every event. After watching Major Barrett, I realized maybe I was holding myself back. Maybe I could push myself as hard as the men. And when I went to Fort Campbell pre-Ranger course, I was first in the 5-mile run. And when I went through RAP week for that second time, I was first in the Ruck March in my company. The instructors were kind of surprised to see me back so soon. They thought I was injured or something. But by that time, I knew I could push myself to be in the front of any pack. Since joining the infantry, women have continued to inspire me and push me to be better. When the ACFT was getting rolled out, I called out now Lieutenant Colonel Jaster for some advice on deadlifting. I was concerned that I could only do 180 pounds and didn't think I could meet the infantry standard. She reassured me, like, Chris, trust me, you can get over 200 pounds. You'll be fine. She was right. Captain Shay Haver, my counterpart, who's on her 3rd Infantry Company command right now, decided when we were commanders in the 82nd Airborne Division that we should do the Bataan Memorial Death March in White Sands. If you don't know, that event is literally a marathon with a rucksack on at a mile of elevation. I did not think this was a good idea. This sounded terrible. But she thought we had a chance, so I agreed, and we actually came in first place in the military heavy co-ed division. The next year, she went down with another team and came in first place overall. There are also women that came after me that continue to inspire me. I met Shayna Koss, class of 2016, here at West Point before she graduated. She was not only in the first group of women to graduate from the Infantry Basic Officer Leader course, but she also became the first female infantry officer in Ranger Regiment and took her platoon to Afghanistan in 2019. I was also lucky to have Aaron Malden as my platoon leader and then my XO. Aaron was the valedictorian of the class of 2014 and went from West Point straight to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. The term Rhodes Scholar is so rare in the infantry, everybody thought we were calling her a rogue scholar. She is currently an infantry company commander in the 101st Airborne Division. I had a real grasshopper becoming a teacher moment when both of these women beat me in a CrossFit competition. Part of me feels like it doesn't count because it's CrossFit, but but a bigger part of me was proud because I know that gender integration is in good hands. So I was really very happy about it. And I was also excited to meet and speak with the 3 women from the class of 2021 who are going infantry as well. All of these examples of women crushing it give me resilience because they demonstrate that there's nothing inherent about my gender that holds me back. They remind me with enough training and effort, I can achieve any goal, even when I face setbacks. All right, the third question, and I promise it's a quick one, is what lessons did I learn about resilience in Ranger School? So it was during the Florida phase. No shit, there I was. This was my least favorite phase because the rucksack was so heavy. And we had a long swap movement scheduled. So the swamp movements, you go into the swamp, which is the Everglades. You know, as the sun is setting, you have no idea how long you're going to be walking for, but pretty much all night. You're tripping over roots. The water's up to your waist or higher, and you just can't see anything, right? So it's just miserable. You've got nods on, but it's awkward. I wanted to carry the 249 for this, the saw. I knew I carried the 240 in the mountains, which is something I wanted to see if I could do. I carried the ASIP pack in Darby, but this was a stretch for me. At 5'5", I was very concerned about drowning in the swamps. And I knew that carrying this awkward weapon with all the extra ammo was only gonna make it harder. But I'd been carrying the weapon all day and planned to keep it as we moved into the swamp and the sun was going down. Already the mud was over my hips and my elbows were dipping into it as I tried to really waddle with this thing. We didn't even make it that far in when one of the instructors saw a bunch of people struggling and yelled out, "Hey, if you're having trouble right now, you're gonna slow everybody down, so just trade off your weapon or your equipment so we don't have a break in contact." He was talking to everybody, and many men traded off their weapons, but in that moment, I felt like he was talking to me. I absorbed all the doubt he had and let all my self-doubt take over. My friend reached down to trade his M4 for my saw, and I gave in, and we moved out. About 50 meters into the swamp, a different ranger instructor came up to me, and they like to do this, and he yelled, "Ranger, where's your machine gun?" I told him I traded it off. My buddy's got it. He was like, "All right, roger that. You now have a major minus, which is a negative spot report, and you only get 3, and this was 2 for me." And he said, "If you don't get your saw back immediately, you're gonna get a second one." So I got it back with a quickness, and he continued to chastise me, saying, "How could you think you could give up your weapon like that? That is your responsibility. It is your job to carry that. How can you just let everybody down?" When he put it like that, it really changed my mindset completely. I went from thinking I was trying to prove something to myself against everybody to thinking that people were depending on me and expected me to do this for the team. He completely flipped the script for me. And I had absolutely no problem carrying that machine gun for the rest of the swamp movement. I realized it was my mindset that was holding me back and my doubt. He told me afterwards he knew I could carry the saw based on my performance. Why did I doubt myself when he knew I could do it? He still gave me the major minus, but he really changed my mentality. This story, I think, is important for cadets to understand as soon as possible that the only thing holding you back is your mindset. Forget your personal hangups or where you came from or any preconceived notions of what you might be capable of. You have complete control over your mind, and sometimes a simple change in perspective is all it takes to be resilient. So I hope in addition to this message of resilience, you also got something about gender integration, because it's not just important for our Army or our country, but gender integration throughout the world is important for security and freedom. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who often points out that his own mother was in the waves during World War II, testified recently about our presence in Afghanistan. He thought it was important enough to mention that if we leave that country, women's rights will be set back to the Stone Age. I have since heard several critics ridicule this idea that we should be worried about women's rights in Afghanistan, that we're somehow just trying to advance some radical progressive agenda overseas. I don't know if those critics think the Special Forces have a radical feminist agenda, because their motto has always been De oppresso liber, to liberate the oppressed. And I can't think of a group of people recently that's been more oppressed than Afghan women by the Taliban. From a strategic standpoint, I don't know if the critics realize that the most natural enemy of radical groups like ISIS are the people who stand the most to lose, the women. Ask the daughters of Kobani. I don't know if the critics of women's rights realize that women are people too, equally motivated to preserve life, fight for liberty, and pursue happiness, which Malala Yousafzai proved at the age of 15 when she stood up to the Taliban and was shot for it. Something I learned from all my mentors and role models is that leadership is about recognizing potential in people and catalyzing it. Women are people, and if you can't recognize potential in women, you're not leading, you're following along with the status quo. My class motto is for freedom we fight, and we want to fight. If we want freedom and security in the world, we need to fight for the freedom of everybody. And with that, I'd like to say thank you again for your time. I know it's precious, and end with a few other mottos that are important to me. Follow me, Rangers lead the way, go Army, beat Navy.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your amazing words tonight. Please accept this gift as a token of our appreciation. Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of the Alma Mater by our Cadet Glee Club.
Let duty be well performed, honor herald taught, country be ever on, West Point by thee. Guide us thine own aright, teach us by day, by night, to keep thine honor bright, for thee to fight. When we depart from thee, serving on land or sea. May we still loyally West Point to thee. And when our work is done, our course on earth is run, may it be said, well done. Be thou at peace. May the tide of grace increase from day to day. Live, serve, and die, we pray. West Point for thee.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's dinner. On behalf of the Corps of Cadets, I thank everyone for attending. I would also like to thank the old grads near and far for joining us virtually this evening. Also, I would like to thank West Point AOG, the VIOS team, the Directorate of Cadet Activities, the Cadet Hostess Office, and especially the mess hall staff for their hard work in preparing and serving tonight's dinner. Thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of the evening. Have a good night, everyone. Corps dismissed.